What's up, guys? We're back today on my podcast with Davey McCollum, the healthy gut guru. So he's here himself, and we're going to go through basically how I met Davey, what his background is, and what he does. And I'm just going to get him to introduce himself here.
Hi everyone, my name is Davey McCollum. They call me the Healthy Gut Guru. I specialise in all sort of gut-related health issues, which then leads into many systemic health issues, including skin problems, autoimmune diseases, headaches, etc. So Hippocrates believed that the root of all disease is in the gut, and he also believed that food is your medicine and medicine should be your food. And obviously things have gone somewhat awry over the last 50, 60 years, and we're seeing a massive increase in gut-related problems and autoimmune-related problems as well. So what would you like me to say? Would you like me to say a little bit about my background, or?
Yeah, well, obviously from what Davey does on a day-to-day basis, he works with clients and that have autoimmune diseases. What else, David? What would your top 10 problems be that you would see with clients that you work with?
Well, probably the number one condition that I would treat would be irritable bowel syndrome.
Yeah.
And IBS is just a blanket term for a range of different symptoms with no definitive diagnosis. So 1 billion of the world's population suffers from IBS. Those symptoms can include constipation, diarrhea, cramping, abdominal bloating. And as a knock-on from that, they quite often will have skin problems or fatigue issues or headaches or hormonal issues or metabolic disorders like thyroid issues, cardiovascular issues, diabetes.
Yeah.
All of these things actually originate in the gut.
Skin problems.
All of them. We call the skin the third kidney.
Yeah.
So when your body is failing to detoxify through the lungs, the kidneys, the intestinal tract, the liver, it comes out through the skin.
Yeah.
So whenever I see anyone with skin conditions, I'm always looking to the gut, and I'm looking to, the other organs of detoxification, which aren't
to see what's going on,
doing what they're meant to do.
Yeah. So in the round, you help all your clients get a healthy gut. Basically,
we start off working on the gut, and as we start to rebalance the gut and optimize its function, you find that a lot of their other systemic problems start to improve. If they've got headaches, then their headaches start to disappear. If they've got joint pains, those pains start to disappear.
Yeah, because you've over how many brain cells in the gut? It's your second brain. People call it the second brain, don't they?
Yeah, well, in the gut you have between 100 and 1,000 trillion microorganisms.
Yeah.
So when you're looking up on Google, how many cells do we have in the body, how many... the range varies. Some people say, we have, 10 times more gut bacteria than we have cells in our body. The figures aren't really that definitive. Certainly there's about 10 times more connections between the gut and the brain than the other way about.
Yeah.
90% of your serotonin, which is your happy feel-good chemical, is made by your gut bacteria. 90% of your GABA, which is your anti-anxiety neurotransmitter, is made by your gut bacteria. So when you're feeling depressed, you don't need an antidepressant. You need to be looking to the gut flora, and see if they're healthy and happy, and that you're feeding them the right foods so that they can then feed you.
I was actually watching something that was interesting. He said whenever you're depressed, obviously you go back to different symptoms, what's going on, all the rest. But one of the guys said in the podcast I was watching was depressed is you need deep rest.
Sleep is an absolutely pivotal and essential part of optimum functioning.
100%. And for both of our jobs, sleep is up there.
Yeah, so like 400% of your melatonin is not just made in your pineal gland in the brain. Melatonin is your sleep hormone.
Yeah.
But it's actually made again by your gut bacteria.
Yes.
So your body will take 5-HTP, which is a precursor. It'll convert it to tryptophan.
Yeah.
That gets converted to serotonin, and then that gets converted to melatonin. So if your gut bacteria is out, it's going to have a significant effect on your ability to sleep deeply and to recover fully.
And how you feel about yourself.
And how you feel about yourself. You know, how many people go to bed and say, well, I slept all night and I woke up this morning and I feel absolutely exhausted.
As if you never slept.
As if I've never slept. And I haven't got the motivation to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. What's going on?
So certainly the neurotransmitters play a pivotal role in that, as do certain things that
so basically
poison us.
Everything you're saying and around, you understand it. But how does your clients understand that? How can you break it down in a logical way that they understand it, or you need to tell them what's going on? Where do you start? How does that process start?
Well,
because there's a lot of diagnosing there and finding out what's going on, what isn't going on, what are you doing. Obviously, nutrition is a massive part.
Yeah, you know, the prequel to me working with people is to give them an understanding of how the gut functions.
Yeah,
and why it's important that they understand how the gut functions. Education for me is pivotal in all things that I do. You know, you can tell people to do something, but they need to understand why they're doing it. And if they understand the why, it's easier to make it as part of their lifestyle.
Yeah, not just do it for 6 weeks or a month or...
You know, what does they say? It takes 60 to 90 days to change a habit.
Yeah.
And to break habits. And certainly... you know, when I'm working with my clients, some people will approach me and look for a one-off consultation. Well, it's like going to a personal trainer.
Once.
You know, show me these exercises, give me a diet plan, and, you know, expect 6 months down the line to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah.
You know?
So you take them and you work from the inside and change them from the inside out, as well as the nutrition side of things, and educating them and exercise and these different things to get them to the optimal self.
Yeah, like all coaching, you know, it's an education role, it's a support role, and it's accountability. Yes. You know, and I think everyone at some certain time in your life, you're going to need a coach for whatever it does, you know.
But this is a different type of coaching you do from I've ever seen.
Yes.
To be honest, like everybody's jumped on the PT wagon, the online coach wagon, all these different things. They look good. Mm-hmm. But whenever you look good, sometimes you don't feel good.
No. And obviously...
And you've done this too.
Well, obviously with my sporting background, you know, I started bodybuilding at 17. Yeah. I was the proverbial 8-stone weakling. Yeah. I was the one who had sand kicked in his face and got picked on at school and got bullied. Yes. Now, by the time I got to 16... that had started to ease off. I started lifting weights just to get stronger. 6 months after lifting weights, I remember walking into Easton's in Coleraine, and there was a bodybuilding magazine called Bodybuilding Monthly, and Mr. Universe from the 60s, a guy called Bill Pearl, was standing doing this amazing pose. And I was just hooked. I wanted to look like that. I was going to be that man.
And where did you say that stemmed from? School?
Being picked on and bullied.
You thought if you achieved that physique, nobody could pick on you then?
And in those days, you know, a certain amount of women were attracted to muscular men. I'm not sure what a lot of women are attracted to these days when you see some of the woke generation. I think it's quite challenging for a man to find a woman these days. Mm-hmm. When we were growing up, you know, we went out and socialised. We went out to nightclubs, we went out to bars. Now it's all done through social media. And how do you get to know someone? You know, when someone's sitting there going, flick.
But how does somebody know themselves if they don't spend any time with themselves? They're spending time on that phone all the time.
I think most of the time, most people don't actually know themselves. You know, and I will be the first to put my hands up. I'm really only finding myself now in this last 2 years. The circumstances that has happened with this pandemic over the last 2 years forced me to change everything about how I work and also my role in life. I never thought I would see myself being a leader or standing in front of thousands of people outside Belfast City Hall, sharing my knowledge and my research with other people. If you had asked me 2 years ago, this time 2 years ago, I was lying on a sofa every day with a hangover, looking at the ceiling, thinking, "Is this what my life has come to?"
Yes.
You know, I've spent all these years accumulating knowledge,
Yes.
and yet I've got myself into a dark, dark, dark place in a big rut.
Yeah.
And when this whole COVID pandemic, etc., started, something kicked in and says, right, you're going to have to rethink things, or you're going to, and please don't take this the wrong way. I'm not being derogatory regarding anybody who works in Tesco's.
Yeah.
But when you spent thousands of pounds honing your skills, learning your art, and you have no faith or belief in yourself or anything anymore, and you're just lying there, just not living, just existing.
Yeah.
So this whole thing gave me a kick up the arse to launch the Healthy Gut Guru.
Yeah, because you wanted to investigate into what is COVID, what is this vaccine, what is this virus, what is going on, because you knew you had the knowledge and the people around you to find out more about it.
Well, that was partly how I got into it, and also because, I used to do cardiovascular screening clinics,
Right.
but all my clinics were closed.
Yeah.
So I had no vehicle to interact with people. So I had to create an online business. I had to learn how to coach people online. And the great thing is, I can't do that. You know, I can send test kits out to people. They don't have to come to me.
Yeah.
You know, I can send out everything. You know, these are a blessing and a curse.
Yes, 100%. I agree.
When they're a blessing,
you have to know what to use it for.
Look, I have clients in China, I have clients in Thailand, I have clients in England. You know, I have clients all over the world. You couldn't have done that a number of years ago.
You could have, but it would have been a lot more difficult. It's a lot easier now.
It is, as long as the internet stays up.
Right, yeah.
Well, we know all about that, don't we, Connor?
That's it. The internet, is a bit of a challenge sometimes. But as we said, like, you went on and you seen that magazine and you were like, right, I want to be that man. And that. So, something similar happened to me.
Yeah. So I started bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And, I'm 57 next month.
Yeah.
So we're talking 40 years ago. We barely had leisure centres. We certainly didn't have gyms like the wonderful Focus gym here.
Yeah. In the middle of nowhere?
In the middle of nowhere. So I trained in my garage with a few weights.
Yes.
I bought a home gym. I remember many a time having to shout and scream for my father to come round. He'd find a barbell across my throat when I've been doing bench pressing on my own.
Yeah. You're in the guys bench pressing away and you had to get somebody on to help you.
Yeah, because I had only small plates, and then I had like two big 25 kilo plates, and when I put those on, and then when you fail with 70 kilos in the bar, and it ends up somewhere.
Yeah.
So people are very lucky today.
Everything's a lot more accessible
with the facilities that they have. So anyway, I started training. Started university.
Yeah.
I started a degree in physiotherapy.
Yes.
Now, the first year I loved it. I loved all the academic side of it. And I worked my ass off my first year at university. And I did really well. I had a point to prove to myself that I was bright enough, that I was clever enough to do this. So, and I did really well my first year. And then second year, the bodybuilding kicked in more, and all I could think about was bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And I wasn't enjoying my physio course. I was going to give up halfway through. I was encouraged to stay to see out my time, which was 4 years at university.
With physio, 4 years?
4 years I did my degree. I was glad to see the end of it. I started working in hospital. I enjoyed work okay. Then I worked in England for 3 years in hospital. Spent 2 years working in a private practice in Brighton. That's where I met my ex-wife. And then I came home. My parents wanted me to come home, and I set up a physiotherapy clinic in Cookstown, which was probably the first physio clinic in Cookstown.
Yeah.
And then started working there. And also at the same time, I was working as a physio for Portdown Rugby Club.
Yeah.
So
a bit of private stuff on the side. And
so it was all private stuff, and then they had a room down at the rugby club, so I could see private patients and then see the rugby guys in the evening.
Yes.
So I had sort of two practices going, but as time went on, I always knew that physiotherapy wasn't.
And during this time, you were bodybuilding the whole
And I
time.
was bodybuilding. So the first competition I did, I was on stage at 9.5 stone, dripping wet.
9.5 stone.
Nine massive.
Yeah.
9.5 stone, dripping wet.
I don't have photographs to put up here.
Probably find some somewhere. And I came last in my first competition.
Yeah.
And the guy that won it, a friend of mine, Graham was only 16 at the time. He walked on the stage at 12.5 stone with 16.5-inch arms.
Jeez.
Just one of these genetic freaks.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Graham died about 5 years ago. So Graham's 5 years younger. I mean, he died 5 years ago from his third heart attack. So, so there's two areas, with the bodybuilding. Once I was on stage, even though I came last,
Yes.
I loved it. I loved the whole experience. So the next time I competed, I got a first and a second.
Yeah. You enjoyed the process.
Yeah, I loved
the hard work.
I loved
dedication.
I loved the stage.
Yeah.
The hard work and the diet wasn't what I enjoyed, but I just came alive when I was on stage,
Yeah.
I did. So my second show, I got a first and a second, and then I competed in the NABA Northern Ireland, I think it was 1992, in the novice class. Now, bodybuilding was such a niche sport back then. There was only a few people doing it.
Wasn't popular.
Well, it was, it
Wasn't as like it is today.
No, it wasn't like it is today.
And bodybuilding then was different. It's more fitness models now than bodybuilding.
Oh, it was proper hardcore. So the third show that I did was Mr. Northern Ireland. I came second in the novice class.
Yeah.
Out of a class of 13, and believe me, 13 was a massive class back then, and it was actually on my birthday. So I got second place on my birthday.
Good man. What age were you then?
24, about the 24, 25, around about that.
Yeah.
24, 25. I did one further show in Brighton, where I won my class. That would have been about 1993. Came home to set up my physio clinic, and then trained sort of on and off sporadically, kept myself in reasonable shape, and then didn't compete for years.
Yeah.
Until I competed in 2005. So I decided in 2004 I was going to do the over 40s.
Yeah.
Mr. Northern Ireland.
Yes.
So about 4.5 months out, I started training towards that. Well, at the same time as I was training for that, we ended up selling my house. Ended up moving out of my house on my 40th birthday. 2 days later, I won Mr. Northern Ireland over 40s NABA bodybuilding championship. 2 days later, I was living in Spain.
Just gone.
So moved to Spain in brilliant shape. 4 months in Spain.
What happened to physio?
I was still doing physio.
Yeah, but what happened to the business you had here?
So I had a physiotherapy business.
Yeah.
In 1999, I actually went back to college and started doing a part-time naturopathic medicine course. It was the first enrollment of the College of Naturopathic Medicine in Belfast. So that started in 1999. That went on for 3 years.
Yeah.
So whilst I was studying naturopathic medicine, I had my own physio clinic, and I was able to incorporate working with my physio clients and introduce them to nutrition. And then I started doing some very bespoke and niche testing. And I actually ended up with the Irish Times magazine came along and did a photo shoot, and they told me this is going to be going, and this article was going to be going into the Irish Times. Didn't know when. They didn't give me a timeline.
Yeah.
I just knew it was going to happen. They actually turned one of my physio rooms into like a proper photo studio. I thought it was just going to come up and take me a couple of shots.
Yeah.
They spent 4 hours there
with
the lighting and everything. So I didn't think anything of it. In the meantime, my wife got pregnant.
Yeah.
With our son.
Yeah.
And my son was born on let me see, what's the date? 20th of October 2001. He was born. And he was born 12:30 in the morning, and at that time I had a big house, and I had 3 rooms in the house that turned into a physio and natural health clinic.
Is this before you went to Spain? Or
This is before I went to Spain.
This is before you went to Spain?
This is before I went to Spain. So I came home, my son's just been born, I went into the clinic and I thought I'll check the phone to see if there's any messages. Well, I went in and there was like 90 messages on the phone, and then suddenly it clicked with me this article had come out in the Irish Times magazine.
Yeah.
So I had to hire out to the nearest newsagent to see if I could get a copy of this. So opened it up, and here there's a colour magazine and double page colour spread of me in the magazine holding the syringe up with this sort of dark red lighting. It looked like something from a vampire movie.
Right.
Holding the syringe up. And then, so my son came home the next day, and I had the busiest year, 2001. It was the busiest year that I ever had. I was working 10, 12 hours a day, walking straight in, and my wife would hand me the baby to look after.
Yeah.
So it was about 4 years. So 4 years after that, that's when we moved to Spain.
Yes.
And then when we moved to Spain, life fell apart.
Right.
So my ex-wife, she didn't like Northern Ireland. When we went to Spain, you know, it was great honeymoon period when we first got there. It seemed lovely, sun shining. But see, trying to get business.
Trying to get work, trying to get your head down.
You know, I was a big fish in a small pond in Northern Ireland. I thought it'd be even bigger in Spain. Quite the opposite. So I moved to Spain. My income fell 70%. My overheads tripled.
Yes.
My son was in a private school.
Yeah.
And nothing was working.
Yeah.
So then I just threw myself back into the one thing that always worked with me, which was competing.
Yeah.
Because it gave me structure and discipline and a routine.
Yes.
So I prepared to compete in 2006 in Mr. Northern Ireland and Mr. Ireland. And it was brilliant. You know, you got up 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, the sun.
You had that routine there.
The sun was rising. You know, going out for an hour's walk first thing in the morning as the sun's rising, it's absolutely amazing, you know. And then I'd go to the gym in the evening. My diet was great, but work still wasn't really doing an awful lot. And I remember coming off the stage in Belfast in, I think it was beginning of March 2006, or came off the stage in Derry because I'd competed the day before in Belfast at the NABA show, and I got a second place. The guy who beat me was from Derry, like, he was 5 stone heavier than me. We both were in amazing condition. Yeah. I had a great lower body. He had a massive upper body, and they gave it to the big guy. So it's always going to be that way. If there's a lot of smaller guys who had been the judges, I probably would have won it. But anyway, so I remember the next day I competed in the WABA Ireland, and I remember coming off the stage, going back to the hotel room, standing in front of the mirror, looking at myself, thinking, wow, God, you look amazing. And it just felt empty. Yeah. I felt empty because that was the climax for me. And I knew I was going back to Spain. I knew I was going back, and my business was failing. My relationship was failing. Yeah. And I moved back to Spain. I went back to Spain, and suddenly there was a big void in my life. And that void then ended up getting filled with the wrong things. I started going out clubbing. Yeah. I started taking...
You wanted to get away from it.
Yeah, so... You know,
I want to run away from your problems.
I have a very addictive personality. So, like a lot of addictive personalities, it can be a positive or a negative addiction.
100%.
My positive addiction was when I had structure and routine and discipline for my training.
The day you done the show, you knew there was a problem.
I knew there was a problem.
So as soon as that commitment stopped, you didn't have anything to fill that void.
I was seeking things to help me escape from the reality of my mundane life, my failing relationship with my wife, my failing business. Yes. So what else do you do? Exactly. You start going out clubbing and
you start back into bodybuilding,
taking drugs, and that's what happened. And then, you know, my relationship, it came to a head, and my wife left, and I knew the day that she got on the plane, I knew that was it. Yeah, I knew my gut told me that's it. It's our marriage is finished. Yeah, my pride was so great because I'd sold up the house, and you know I was, you know, when I look back then, I was quite full of myself. Yeah, quite arrogant, you know. But the problem is, then you build up all these layers of around, and I couldn't. I didn't want my parents to know that things weren't working out the way they should have been, and you
didn't want to face the reality, the bit of failure that might have been there in your life. Yeah, so because you built up this man that was this bodybuilder and everything looked so good from the outside looking in, but within you, it wasn't that way.
And I think, truthfully, if you asked the majority of bodybuilders,
Yeah. They're all the same.
They're all the same.
Yeah.
You know,
They're hiding something else.
we build up this huge protective shell,
Filled.
and then emotionally inside, most of us are quite damaged.
Yeah.
And it's been a long process to find
Who you are.
to find me and find who I am. And it's like, so I struggled for many years with drinking drugs.
Yeah.
And obviously as a result of that, I ended up with my own gut health issues.
Yeah. And where do you think that stemmed from?
I can remember as a young child questioning my parenthood. I mean, like, I'm a middle child.
Yeah.
We took loads of people. Well, this might resonate with quite a few middle children, because we always seem to be that we don't really fit in.
Yeah.
That we're always searching for something. We're always searching for answers.
Yeah.
We're always investigating.
Yeah.
We never accept anything as it is.
As it is, yeah. You're not always an inquiry.
I'm always, and I suppose that's why 2 years ago, when this whole thing kicked off with COVID, suddenly, you know, that's where I had to put my energies. I knew that I had to look into why are we not talking about immunity, natural immunity, natural health? Why are we talking about getting immunity in a syringe?
And putting a mask on.
And putting a mask on. And I started questioning everything and researching everything. And of course, having done my vaccine research 22 years ago, so I had researched vaccines 22 years ago before my son was born and conceived.
Yeah.
We knew that we didn't want to vaccinate our son because we didn't feel it was appropriate for him.
Yeah.
You know, if you live in the Western world and you've got a really healthy diet, and, you know, Sam was breastfed for 13 months, blah, 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 that, you know, natural immunity trumps any artificial immunity.
Yeah.
You know, so whenever the government was saying from the very onset of this, oh no, we're working on a vaccine, I thought, well, how can you be working on a vaccine this quick when this is supposed to be a novel virus that we've never seen before?
Yeah.
And it usually takes anywhere between 4 to 10 years to actually develop a vaccine and then put it through full safety trials.
Years.
So the warning bells were running then, and then of course me being the middle child and the inquisitive mind, and I was searching.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it has created a lot of division amongst families, amongst those people who...
Amongst families,
Got
working
friends,
relationships, friends, people have stopped speaking to people. Like, a lot of judgment.
Yeah.
A lot of judgment.
So, as I say, after, say, my relationship broke up, I always felt that it wasn't complete unless it was with someone, but who, you know, anybody I met, all they got was the poor me story. Poor me, another.
Yes.
So took a long time. It took a long time, and as I say, it's been a tough.
Did that drive you, the alcohol and the drugs, and that circumstance after the marriage, and you thought, right, this is it? How long did that take you to come out of that? And what cycle? Where were you at in that whole thing? And where did you come back to Northern Ireland? Did you stay in Spain?
So I stayed in Spain to 2008.
How many years were you there now? 2001?
So that's 3 years, from 2005 to
2008.
2008. So I came back to...
You partied the whole time, apart from 6 months?
On and off, and got myself into in a really bad way using...
But did you have a good time?
No.
That's an important question to ask.
No, not the addiction that I developed with drugs.
Yeah.
And you know, my heart goes out to anybody
Yes.
who suffers from any sort of addiction type issues. I think a lot of people are very quick to judge.
We talked about this in our leadership program.
Yeah, I think an awful lot of people are very quick to judge.
Yeah.
You know, unless you know,
Been there.
unless you've been there, and you know, nobody knows what's really going on inside. Even me, myself, half the time, I don't know what's going on inside my head.
Yeah. Yeah, if we knew that, we wouldn't be here. Or would we?
So, you know, I struggled, and thankfully, sort of God has intervened and sort of says, right, David, the reason you're here for a reason.
Yeah.
This whole thing was the reason I was meant to be here, to try and encourage and help and educate people. Give them some support during this whole thing.
Use your education.
It's not a role that if you said to me 2 years ago that this is what I'd be doing 2 years later, I would laugh at you.
But you were the healthy gut guru pre-COVID. Because I remember you, whenever I met you way back, well, that was nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah, well, I did a little bit of gut health. Most of the work I did when I came back home in 2012 was really to do with cardiovascular health.
Yeah.
And run clinics. I knew at some stage that was probably going to change. So I'm very happy because I absolutely love doing what I do now. You know, this is my raison d'etre.
This is you.
This is me. And I've always tried to, even within my physiotherapy time and physiotherapy, I was the first person to bring a power-assisted manipulation machine to Northern Ireland. When I trained as a naturopath, I was using...
explain, what is that machine?
That
sounds like someone playing Elon Musk shit.
It was a machine that had like four little feet, and it was designed to mobilise the spine and supposed to do the work that your hands were meant to do. But it was the very earliest model that I was using, so it actually was really uncomfortable. The hand, they've got better ones now. You ended up after doing 30 minutes or something and your hands were killing you because you had to put all your weight through this machine on their spine if they've got a really stiff spine. So anyway, I always try to develop niches within my business where other, because there's loads of physios. So what separates me from them? Well, I was using that equipment. So when I trained as a naturopath, what was separating me from other alternative health professionals? Well, I was using technologies and testing that nobody else was doing.
Yeah.
And even within the Healthy Gut Guru, there's not that many people in Northern Ireland who are specifically working with gut-related issues. And the stuff that I do currently with all my clients is based on the very latest research that's just coming out.
Yeah.
So it's going to be 20 years. A lot of the stuff I'm doing now, it'll be 20 years before this gets into the NHS.
Yes.
That's how cutting edge. The testing I do is cutting edge. I use a laboratory in Germany for doing my stool testing. We do things called SIBO breath testing. We have a whole range of functional testing that we can do. And there's not that many people that are au fait with these things. So when I'm working with people with gut health issues, they're getting the latest information, the latest
private
testing. Yeah, private testing.
Yeah.
It'd be so much easier if I was a naturopath in America, where nearly everybody has private health insurance, which will pay for all these tests, because the tests, as anybody will testify to, if you go privately,
it's going to be expensive.
It's going to be more expensive.
Yeah.
But
you're going to get the right information.
But at the same time, like the stool testing the NHS uses is absolutely useless.
Yeah.
Because it works on a culture test. So you do a poop, you take a sample and you try and grow whatever's in the poop. Well, the majority of microorganisms in your gut are what we call anaerobic organisms. They don't use oxygen to function. So as soon as you have a poop and they're exposed to air, they die.
That's not
so you cannot culture dead bacteria.
Yeah.
So the company I use, Biofist.
Seal it.
Biofist. Well, what we do is we do DNA analysis. So they know the genomic or genetic profile of all the microorganisms in your gut.
Yeah.
And then they measure how much there is of these microorganisms. So they have parameters where they know what the optimal levels of certain microorganisms should be. So your test and see if you've got too much of a particular type of organism or too little.
Yeah.
And that tells you an awful lot about, the gut function, about the inflammation in their body, about leaky gut, about SIBO. There's all these different health conditions that by doing these tests, we can get a more definitive answer of what exactly is going on.
Yeah, well, if you go to the NHS,
so I've had 3 of my clients who have done the stool testing through the laboratory, and it's all come back with all the relevant information. And then the same 3 have had their stools tested in the NHS after, and showed nothing.
Yes, but you know how to help them now.
But I have helped all of them.
Yeah,
because the testing, if we're not testing appropriately, we're not going to find what we're looking for.
Yeah.
So these tests are coming back to GP. Oh no, your test came back normal. Well, why is my gut causing me problems? I don't really know.
Yeah.
Well, let's send you for an endoscopy. Let's send a camera down the throat or a camera up the bum.
Yeah.
And those tests are great to discover if there's any serious pathology, like cancers.
Yes.
Or inflammatory bowel disease, like Crohn's or colitis or diverticulitis or polyps and things like that. But at a microscopic level, those tests will come back normal.
Yeah.
And most of our gastroenterologists do not work on functional gut testing or fixing the dysfunction within the gut. For many years, I'll give you an example, right? So for many years, if you got an inflamed appendix, they went and weaked it out. They said the appendix is a vestigial organ. It's an organ that was there for millions of years, but we don't use it anymore. Well, actually, no. Your appendix is part of what we call your gut-associated lymphoid tissue. So it's an essential part of your immune system. Mm-hmm. So when you take that out, that's going to affect your immune system in your gut, of which 70% of your immune system's found. Yeah. Like if someone goes along and they have a rumbling gallbladder, they're getting gallbladder pain. Well, we need to whip your gallbladder out. Well, the gallbladder is a storage organ for bile. Bile is used to emulsify fat so you can digest and process and absorb fats better. Yeah, so if you take the gallbladder out and your body can't release a lot of bile at the appropriate time whenever you eat a fatty meal, then suddenly you can't digest fatty foods. And that's more problems. And not only that, the bile in itself has a bacteriostatic effect, so it kills bacteria in the gut. So if you remove that, then people start getting an overgrowth of bacteria where they shouldn't be. And this is one of the things that I find with a lot of my clients who have had a gallbladder removed. They end up with a condition called SIBO. They end up with massive amounts of gut dysfunctional issues.
So we're not actually solving the problem. We're taking something out and creating more problems.
God in his infinite wisdom put these things there for a reason.
Yeah, why would you want to take it out?
Well, look, sometimes
you have to.
If it's really, really damaged or if it's really, really infected, they have to. But a lot of the time, we should be looking at other treatments to try and help the body heal itself, which the body can do.
100%.
Like you yourself, just with the work that you do with your breath work and your hot and cold water, using all of these stressors on your body actually creates a process called hormesis. Yeah. Hormesis is your body's adaptation to stressors to get stronger and healthier. Yeah. So what you're doing here with the breath, with the breath work, what you're doing with the cold and hot therapies, they actually are one of the best ways of strengthening your immune system naturally.
Yeah. Without any supplements. Oxygen.
Yes.
Oxygen.
Water.
Changing the body from acid to alkaline.
Water. Yeah. Oxygen.
And you take a lot of water whenever you do hot and cold. Especially the next day. And that's the detox from that is like what is going on.
So I've just myself recently started taking a cold, it can last about a minute, cold shower now. I invested in an infrared blanket.
Yeah, 100%.
I've been using a Detox Clay that a guy supplied to me from England, a guy called John Rooney, who was a boxing trainer. And John contacted me about using this Detox Clay, which I've been using now for 3 weeks. And I must say, I'm starting to feel the benefits of that.
What is it?
It's a green clay that comes from Italy.
It's not black oxygen, is it?
No. It's not.
Did you ever hear of black oxygen?
It's not based on fulvic acid, and it's not based on humic acid. But it's one of these diatomatous soils that's been around for millions of years, and basically what it does, it'll bind on to positively charged particles, which is what most of your toxins in your body will be oxidized.
So it's oxidating more.
Well, it basically binds to any sort of damaged or oxidized molecules. Right. And one of the, I'm going to be starting to try it with some of those people who are trying to recover from the COVID vaccines. Yes. Because they want to try and get the spike proteins pulled out. So things like fulvic acid, like Noah uses, these green clays. The green clay is very inexpensive, like a 500-gram bag, and I've been using it now.
£100 or something?
This here. 16 quid, 17
quid.
Oh, it's a fraction.
Because I know the black oxygen...
It's expensive.
But it's not...
No, because you need so little of it.
So little.
But as I say, this here, you don't need it. You need like 5 to 7 grams a day. You put it in your glass. Yeah. And they say the first 5 or 6 days, you stir it up. You leave it to settle. The first 5 or 6 days, you just drink the water. Yeah. Now I'm up to drinking the full clay.
So the process of how that was discovered is because these... vaccinations, now people are trying to get this vaccination out of them.
Well, that's certainly one of the benefits of using things like fulvic acid, humic acid, zeolite, this green clay, that nature has everything we need.
100%. Maybe too much sometimes.
And the unfortunate thing is that so many people don't understand how your immune system works. So they actually believe your immune system comes in a syringe.
No.
People think you take this and this is suddenly going to improve and enhance your immune system.
Booster.
Well, the two groups of people who should never have any vaccines, and particularly not these type of vaccines, are those people who have either got cancers or have underlying autoimmune problems. Because when these experimental Vs, we call them mRNA technologies, they're a one-trick pony. So they create what we call a spike protein. Yeah. And it's the spike protein on the SARS-CoV-2 that binds onto your cells. It's the spike protein which is highly toxic to our body. So when we take these mRNA technologies, they create a spike protein within your body. And initially they believed that just the spike protein stayed at the injection surface, at the injection site, and that your immune system then attacked this here and created antibodies to the spike protein. And what they actually found is that these spike proteins get into your bloodstream, and from the bloodstream they'll travel all over your body. So if they bind onto certain cells, and then your body and your antibodies say, well, what's that doing here? It starts to attack the spike protein and the cells it's attached to.
Yeah.
So if you have an autoimmune disorders are where the body fails to recognize or differentiate between its own tissues and foreign substances. If you have an underlying autoimmune problem and you put these technologies in, your body just starts to attack your own tissues.
Yeah.
I've had 4 patients that had been double V'd with Crohn's and colitis, and within 10 days, their colitis and Crohn's went through the roof.
Yeah.
Because their body started attacking themselves.
So guys, I want to thank Davey, the Healthy Gut Guru, for coming in and doing his YouTube with us today, this episode, and giving us some insight into what he does to help his clients. And just give us some insight to who he is. It was very brief. I met Davey about 8 years ago, and we've worked closely together. I was a client of Davey's for quite some time. Just taught me a lot about supplements, supplementation, and different things within the fitness industry and health industry and cardiovascular systems. So that's how I met Davey, and maybe get into that deeper with him through time when we have him back. So again, thanks for Davey. You can follow him in the links in the comments, the Healthy Gut Guru on Facebook and Instagram. And thanks Davey for coming. He's not here right now, but he had his scoot on, and we'll chat to him in the next episode.